So please meet Gilad Bandel. He is the business developer at Automotive Technologies. In his past, he's been the VP of Product and Marketing at Airlu, also VP Product at Radiflow, and various senior level positions in cyber and network industry. Gilad is going to speak today about lessons learned from IT and OT, ICS and SCADA, cybersecurity applied to automotive insights. So very, very good, Gilad. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi there, thank you very much. Actually, my name is Gilad Bandel, but this is Hebrew name, so all other names pronunciation are more than welcome. So thank you for joining me today. Today I will try to share some of my experience and of our experience from other markets, namely from the IT market and from the industrial control system and SCADA. Those are things like controlling substations and manufacturing lines and oil platform, things like this, and how can we apply them to the automotive industry, because it doesn't make sense to make the same errors again and again, and we need to gain the information and experience acquired by other industries and try to come up to speed and use this information and experience so we have better and safer vehicles. So a bit of history, where we are standing. So the IT is 80 years old, 90 years old, 70 years old, depending where you start. And this is something that every day we have cyber attacks. So it's a commodity, and it's clearly understood that in the IT, cyber attacks and cyber events, it's part of life. You need to live with it and you need to cope with it. But this is something that everyone understands. In the ICS SCADA, those are devices that started a few years, many years later. Some commonality with the automotive in terms that they start to be simple. They started with air-gapped networks. Today, they are huge operations. Those are called PLCs. This is the equivalent of the automotive ECU. The main difference is that the ECU in most cases has all the software performing the logic, while the PLC is programmable, so you can manipulate it and you can use it in a flexible fashion. Another thing that we see in the ICS SCADA is that there is a tendency of moving into a conversion mode of IT and OT. So if you have, for example, an electricity company and all the control was air-gapped and totally disconnected from the internet, today you want to know what was the electricity consumption in real time on your laptop or on your mobile phone. To make this happen, you need to interconnect the IT, where you have your application running on your computer, to the OT network. That means that those are not air-gapped systems. Those are converged systems. So a lot of value is gained by converging those systems, but at the same time, security risks emerge from this convergence. The automotive, we have ECUs. Everyone knows the ECUs. They started as very simple devices, and today they become more and more very powerful, high powerful computers. We have around 70, 80, 90 of them in a vehicle, all of them interconnected in a network. And even worse, those are connected to external networks, connected to the internet via cellular. We have Wi-Fi, we have Bluetooth. So there are many attack surfaces, all of them wireless attack surfaces. You can also have the OBD, which can be used as an entry point. So this is the history of things. IT started 70, 80 years ago. ICS SCADA started about 40 years ago. Automotive a bit later, like 10, 15 years ago. You can say that the transition really started. In terms of characteristics, once IT was air-gapped, like there was no internet, so obviously it was air-gapped. But today, those are very powerful computers, all of them interconnected in more than one way. The network is chaotic. Every day I can go and browse another website and I can interconnect with anyone else. So this is a very, very unpredictable environment. ICS SCADA is air gap, so it looks more like a vehicle. The network is static. Like you don't add every day a new PLC. Once you have a substation in place or a wastewater facility in place, you don't change things. Things tend to be very static. The network is deterministic. That means that if a PLC is interconnecting with a SCADA server, it will do this forever. And there won't be a case in which two PLCs will start to communicate among themselves for any reason. So this is a deterministic network, and it is predictable. Like if a message appears every 20 milliseconds, it will continue to appear every 20 milliseconds on the network forever. So I can predict what happens. If function code 17 is used, you won't see function code 18 for any reason. So it is very, very predictable. However, the PLCs are very low power computers. That means that it makes life very hard to add cyber software into them. New generations obviously change this, but keep in mind that the life of this kind of equipment, which is very, very, very reliable, is in the order of magnitude of 15, 20 years and more. And if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So we are stuck with very old equipment, very reliable computer equipment that when designed, nobody thought about cybersecurity. Let's look at the automotive. Very, very similar to the ICS SCADA, but 10, 15 years later. The network is connected today, so we are moving to connected cars, and in this regard, we're moving very fast to connected vehicles. The network is still static, deterministic, and predictive, so we have a CAN bus, and we have message code 15, 16, 17, and those are the message IDs that are on the bus. You won't see on the bus message 25 for any reason. And if you see message 25, something very bad happened. The ECUs have very weak power, computing power. So adding additional functionality is next to impossible. The new versions obviously support more computing power, enable virtualization. So we are moving ahead in this direction. Passenger vehicles are very, very sensitive to price. So adding $1 more to the vehicle in the bill of material, in the cost of goods, ends up with a significant increase in the end user, in the customer price. So nobody will rush in changing, adding or increasing or adding more memory and adding more CPU to an ECU. In terms of connectivity, IT, everything is connected. So high power, high speed, we have fiber, we have Wi-Fi, so the IT is connected. ICS SCADA is moving, and it's moving towards Ethernet and IP. So we move from serial buses to Ethernet and IP. Most of the new protocols are using already either Ethernet directly or IP, so like DNP3. We had Modbus RTU, which was serial, moving to Modbus TCP, which is Ethernet and IP. So we have a movement from serial to Ethernet and IP-based network. When we look at the automotive, we are in a similar situation, but again, 5 to 10 years back. That means that still vehicles today are manufactured with CAN bus, and we have FlexRay, we have LIN, but we are moving toward automotive Ethernet and IP. In terms of networks, we have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, TPMS, key fob, cellular. Most of the interfaces are wireless, as opposed to the ICS SCADA, in which most of the interfaces are landline cables. So this is a major difference between automotive and ICS SCADA, which poses the automotive in a higher risk due to the wireless interface. Moving ahead, we're moving to 5G. We're moving to intelligent transportation system. We move to cooperative driving. We move to V2X. That means that more and more and more connectivity. This is translated in higher and higher risks. Decisive incidents. The first virus in the IT happened back in 1972. Since then, an infinite number of viruses, attack scenarios. So everyone knows why you need an antivirus on your computer. In the ICS SCADA, a few major events happened. 2010, the Stuxnet disabled the Iranian nuclear plant centrifuges. This is the decisive event. This is the place where people understood that you can attack very efficiently an ICS SCADA network and cause real damage. The Russians attacked Ukraine actually twice when they had the quarrel about the Crimea Peninsula. Parenthesis, very good question mark. Why in the current conflict, current war, when the Russians attack the Ukrainians, they do not attack using cyber attacks. So this is a question that we need to answer later. And other attacks along the line, so wastewaters and petrochemical and others. So there are many events, some of them go unpublished. In the automotive industry, the only thing that you can really speak about is the Jeep Cherokee. This is a decisive event. Other than this, yes, we hear about some events, but nobody died, no real damage happened. So except refutation to Tesla, in some cases, nothing really happened. So this is a problem because there is a real visible threat and there are no visible events. So people ask, why do I need to invest in something that never happened? This brings us to the issue that the major drive in this industry is regulation, not initiative of companies. Attack vectors. I'm not going to go into this too much due to lack of time, but IT, you attack from all the directions, mainly over the Ethernet and IP. Threat actors can be hackers, can be terrorists, can be countries, can be false flags. The reasons are infinite. Collection of information, stealing of information, stealing of identity. But keep in mind that the worst thing that can happen in IT is that either privacy is breached or information is being lost or money is being lost. Nobody dies because an IT system was hacked. In the ICS SCADA and the automotive, this is not the case, the other way around. Here we speak about safety and reliability because here real damage to property can occur and people can die. Attack scenarios, attack vectors in the ICS SCADA is through any of the PLC HMI. The SCADA server you can attack through the network. You can come with a USB bus. You can attack through the supply chain. A very complex process, doable. In the automotive, this is a very interesting case in which you can buy a copy of the victim and play with it as much as you want until you get a successful attack scenario. This is not the case with IT. You cannot buy a copy of a corporate and see what will happen. In the case of a vehicle, you can buy a vehicle, try to attack it in your backyard until you are successful. And when you are successful, you can launch the attack large scale. So those are very different cases, IT, SCADA, and automotive. How the industry reacted. In the IT, many companies doing cybersecurity, many products, authentication, NAT, firewall, WAF, reverse proxy, you do penetration testing, you do education, awareness, you do network architecture, segregation, anti-spam, antivirus, you can count it. In the ICS SCADA, as I said, we're protecting life. So they are designed, we do network segregation, we add security means, we do IDS and IPS, we do endpoint protection for industrial equipment. So the industry reacted, and it reacted mainly from its own initiative, but also due to regulation. In the automotive, again, safety and reliability, protecting life and property, like the ICS SCADA. We have special cases that do not occur in the ICS SCADA, like aftermarket add-on appliance. You add a third-party EDR and you have a new equipment. You add a new infotainment system, replace your infotainment system, and nobody can control it. So this is a very special case as opposed to ICS SCADA, in which nobody touches, nobody adds things. So the industry in the automotive is reacting, but the main reason it is reacting is due to regulation, standards and regulation. So in the IT, well covered, both things which are more successful or less successful. So if you take the EU GDPR, it's a total failure, but still there is activity and it influences the market and people act according to it. So it's well covered. In the ICS SCADA, only recent years things started to happen. In the US NERC comes with the SIP thing. In the EU, there is a directive, the NIS directive from 2016, 1148, which directs countries. It is in the implementation, but came in quite late still. Compared to automotive, they are like 8 years, 10 years ahead of the automotive. In the automotive, we have good practices like the E and ISA. There are standards like ASPICE, the 21434, and now came in regulation, the UNR 155, which comes in effect 2024. So if you look 2024 compared to 2016, this means that we are nearly 8 years back compared to the closest relative, the ICS SCADA. But we're in the right direction, so it's not all negative. Threat intelligence. In the IT, many evolved, developed, working threat intelligence products and services. So this is a well-established thing. In the ICS SCADA, nothing much to write home about. In the CV database, NVD database, there are many vulnerabilities and exposures that relate to protocols such as Modbus and ICS SCADA. So there is some threat intelligence. In the automotive, unfortunately, here it's a call to action. We need to do much more. We need to share information. We need to use organizations such as the Auto ISAC to share information, share threat information. I know that there is a tendency for companies to hold information internally and not share things that happened or attack scenarios that can be handled and can be mitigated. So this is a call to action for everyone. Please share of information for the benefit of society and your community. We are one people and we want to protect our streets as much as possible. Security information installation. If we look at the IT, then we receive updates every day. Some people have some sandboxes, and there is some delay in deploying of security updates, but this thing is very mature. Another thing that we need to keep in mind, this brand new laptop that I'm holding in my hands is going to the garbage in 2 to 3 years. ICS SCADA, the lifespan is much longer, 10, 15 years. So we have an issue of how to deploy things. Deployment of an upgrade is a long process, takes like 6 months, and you do it once every 2 to 3 years. So this is something which is a threat. It's a risk, because together with the update, you might actually inject a new vulnerability or a new virus. So there is a tendency not to do this. Those are live systems that you want to keep up and running. Looking at the automotive, there are some aftermarket IDS, IPS is not really working. For new model, there is a growing consideration for adding secured gateways, network architecture, secure by design, hardenings. The advance is slow, but is in the right direction. Another thing that we need to keep in mind that the vehicle life cycle is like 15 years. We cannot protect today vehicles that were manufactured not even 15 years, but even 1 or 2 years ago. And this is a risk. Let's skip a few slides, less relevant. We have some dilemmas that we need to take into consideration. For example, do we do detection or prevention? In the IT, we do a lot of prevention. We want to have false positive and false negatives. We work on signatures, and I'm going to speak about signatures here, but actually we do a lot of prevention. ICS SCADA works again on prevention. And again, we need to avoid false positive at all costs. If we have a false positive or a false negative, this is an event, this can disturb a power substation. In the automotive, we have special cases. The vehicle is disconnected from any control center. It might have a TCU. There isn't any human administration in the vehicle. The driver cannot do much if we inform that there is a cyber attack. Another thing is the conflict between OEMs and regulators. OEMs tend to take the detect and response approach. That means let's analyze it in the factory, in the lab, let's see what happened, and then we will send a software update. As opposed to this, regulators try to push to detect and prevent. That means that they want an attack to be stopped in its tracks in the vehicle. Very interesting case again. Not sure where this is going to. Probably some compromise like ISO layer 1 to 4 will be prevention, like a firewall, and the application layer 5 to 7 will be detection and response. Host IDS and network IDS, again, a dilemma. What's better to protect, the network or the host, or both of them? In the IT, we do both. In the ICS SCADA, it's mainly the network. In the automotive, the initial direction is the network. Start with the network and then move to the endpoints. Very hard to say where this is going to. So many discussions, and this might be an interesting subject for a future talk. Intrusion detection vs intrusion prevention, network vs host, what's better? Another question is, how do we detect things? There are two approaches, anomalies or in signatures. For DIT, we work on signatures because there are so many cases, and everything is allowed except the blacklist of the signature. The network is not deterministic, so it's very hard to say what's allowed. So you start with what's not allowed, and whatever is not in the not allowed list goes to the, you can do it. ICS SCADA and automotive, very similar here. We use anomaly detection. We create a baseline. What's on the baseline is allowed. Everything else is not allowed. So it's much easier to protect an ICS SCADA and an automotive network compared to an IT. So here we are a bit more lucky in this respect. Where do we report? In the IT, it goes to the SOC. There are protocols like syslog, SNMP. We have a CERT-IR, cyber event response team, incident response. This can go even to a managed service, so it can be outsourced. In the ICS SCADA, this is relatively new. There are some MSSPs available that offer services. Can't say that I'm thrilled from what I see. So here there is a place where the ICS SCADA need to move ahead. In the automotive, very, very, very good questions. We should have a VSOC with a vehicle security incident and response team. Some OEMs have it, some large fleet operators have it. This is a direction which we need to learn from the past and try to implement as fast as possible new things. Let's keep the ecosystem responsibility. Who pays the price? In the IT, very clear, the CISO. There isn't even something which is called CDO, Chief Digital Officer. So in the IT, responsibility is very, very, very clear. In the ICS SCADA, it's generally the CISO, but not only. It can be the VP engineering. It may be the CEO. So this is something a bit vague. In the automotive, whoever has a good answer will be more than happy to hear. We are speaking here about something which is called Chief Vehicle Security Officer. If anyone has someone, please let me know. The CISO, the CEO, and so on. The future of things to come. IT will continue the race, and right now I think that the attackers have the upper hand, and we're in defense mode, and we're always 2-3 steps behind the attackers. In the ICS SCADA, there is good move ahead, and the tendency and the direction is clear, and any new system will come with cybersecurity. So past old legacy networks is a lost cause, no chance to update them. But we can overlay things, we can add things, we can improve the security. There are many systems out there that can be improved by adding additional layers and additional components in the network. New networks are being designed very well from scratch. We in the automotive lag very much behind. Awareness started to build, standardization and regulation is here now. 2024 is my target of when things will start to look a bit better. Let's take a few messages home. So if you're an OEM or a T1, you must address cybersecurity challenges sooner and today and not tomorrow, because those things, even though we cannot see them, nobody died yet, we will see them. So action is a must. There isn't one silver bullet. You need to take an integrated and multi-layer approach. This is a defense in depth in which you create many layers and the combination depending on what makes sense. So you need a CSMS system, a CSMS. This is required by regulation. You need to have a secure network architecture with segregation between subnetworks and networks. You need to end.
Hi, Gilad.
Yeah.
It's Faye. I hate to interrupt, but we're almost out of time. We've got 1 minute left, and you actually have a question.
Okay, so let's take the question.
Given the fact that automotive is a very diverse environment, can there be a common security model similar to PC networks and cloud systems? And do you know what such a model might look like?
Talk to me in 5 years and I have a good answers. Right now, everyone does it. They have everyone their own Mona Lisa. There isn't much cooperation between OEMs, so there isn't any standardization on or any common effort to drive the industry into one common direction. I would very much like to see a common vulnerability management, data information, a SBOM standard interface, an asset management standard interface that will enable having some cooperation in the industry. Right now, if you're an OEM and you want to bring the SBOM from your T1s, you have a nightmare because there isn't any standardization in this respect. And this is something simple. The question here aims much higher. And we are not there, unfortunately. But having this talk will create awareness and will bring us hopefully in the right direction.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that answer, Gilad. And it looks like we're really out of time now. If you can, we'll just thank you for the presentation today. Did you have any closing remarks?
So thank you very much, everyone. If you have any question, you're more than welcome to approach me. You have my email here, giladbandel@automotive.com. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Faye, and looking forward to meet you in a new next occasion. Thanks.